Finally started, okay. We'll do about 28 minutes. Hello, this is Baha'i Focus. Baha'i Focus is a production of the local Baha'i community of Carbondale. Our guest today is Betsy Haynes. And Betsy, I haven't really seen Betsy in the last several years, but when I first became a Baha'i in Chicago 15 years ago, she was one of my favorite people. I'd like to thank you for coming on. I'd like to thank you for coming on Baha'i Focus.
Oh, I'm very happy to be here, really.
She is one of the nicest people you'll probably ever meet. Oh. You used to work at the National Center.
Yes, I did. I worked there for 5 years.
What did you do?
Well, my first job was to assist Charlotte Linfoot. Do you remember her?
Sure.
And
she was the secretary of the National Spiritual
Assembly, and Glenford Mitchell was secretary.
Uh-huh.
And I assisted her, and one day she called me in and said, Betsy, you have been married and you have been divorced, and I've never been married. And I have all these problems with people who have children and husbands, and I don't know what to do with them. And I wondered if you'd like to take over.
Uh-huh.
So I became an administrative assistant for that kind of personal problem.
Huh.
It wasn't a planned position.
Uh-huh. How long have you been a Baha'i?
38 years.
So this would go back to, let's see, 38 years would be when?
1948.
48.
Just about 48.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
What was it about?
Off,
what was it about the Baha'i faith that appealed to you back then? I know 1948 there weren't many Baha'is around.
No, and not in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Is that where you were?
That's where I was.
Uh-huh.
That's where I was born.
Uh-huh.
Well, the first time we heard about the Baha'i faith, I was in the Methodist church. My family were Methodists, and I was in a Methodist church, and I was singing in a junior choir.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to see the boys afterwards. That was the only time we ever got to even look at them because my father was very strict. And the minister kept having us sing, and we sang, and we sang, and we discovered that there was a wonderful lady in the audience, and she wanted to talk to us about the Baha'i faith.
Hmm.
And so she talked about the faith after a long period of time. And 5 years later, my mother ran into this situation again,
mm-hmm.
and became a Baha'i.
So your mother became a Baha'i first?
My mother became a Baha'i first. And after that, we became Baha'is, each child.
Mm-hmm.
As time went on, we all became Baha'is.
How many children was this?
This is 4.
So you had 4, your mother had 4 children that became Baha'is?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
That's special.
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. We had 3.
Uh-huh.
3 children.
Uh-huh.
My mother had 4 children, but only 3 became Baha'is.
Uh-huh.
And it was a wonderful experience because the reason I became a Baha'i was because of the change it made in my mother's life. I mean, I literally saw her find what she'd been looking for all her life.
Mm.
She'd been looking for equality
mm-hmm.
and an opportunity to worship God with all people,
mm-hmm.
not just with the few blacks.
No barriers, no discrimination.
No discrimination.
1948, that was, there was quite a few barriers between people back then.
It was terrible. I mean, women were not considered equal.
Mm-hmm.
And a black woman, although my mother looked like she was white, and my father was brown-skinned, he looked Indian.
Mm-hmm.
And the barriers right there in a place like Salt Lake City, Utah, were incredible.
Yeah.
They would try to
Salt
go
Lake
somewhere
City
together.
Is predominantly Mormon, and
that's right.
I think back at that time they had a fairly low opinion of blacks, at least
right. In their doctrine.
Yeah.
You see, blacks were not equal.
Right.
And so my poor mother had gone through this discrimination of being black, white, if you know what I mean.
Uh-huh.
And her children, she had 4 children, and to have to go through this was difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And she'd been really been looking and praying for a religion that would lift her out of this,
mm-hmm.
you know. And out of the clear blue, we ran into the Baha'i faith.
Yeah.
And she was ready. I mean, you know, we always talk about receptive souls.
Mm-hmm.
She was ready.
What do you think it was that appealed to her? What was it she was looking for?
I think the first basic was love. I mean, the appreciation of her as a human being, not just a woman, nor a black woman,
mm-hmm.
but a woman, an intelligent woman, a woman who had ideas and
mm-hmm.
thoughts. And when she found out the Baha'i law said that there must be the equality of men and women, This was, I think, the basis for her. Then when she discovered that it meant true association between the races and real harmony and real love and sharing and that kind of thing, her heart just knew that this was right. Now, the funny thing is that when I asked her about it, and we had a talk about it and everything, and I was rather adamant because I was very Christian. I mean, you know, that was it. Christ was it.
Right.
And everybody else was a infidel or something.
I've heard that before. Yes.
Everybody. You know. I mean, Jews were nice. They were nice people. But you know,
that's what they say about Baha'is now. Baha'is are nice. They're wrong, but they're nice.
That was my general feeling at that time. And of course, I was very young and very dumb and very vocal, like most young people. And so my mother said to me one time, she said, I don't have all the answers, but the Baha'is have books. And she said, I have the books to give you, and there are more things to study, and one of the great principles of the Baha'i faith is the independent of investigation of truth. And she said, I'm going to assist you, but I also want you to investigate. And so I did. I began to read and began to study it. And I also developed friendship with another Baha'i family, the Ellis family. My name happens to be Ellis as before marriage. And we found each other, and it seemed like we were friends and relatives, although we aren't, you see. But anyway, with their encouragement and their explanation of things, and my mother's growing understanding of what the Baha'i faith was, I began to really believe in Baha'u'llah and in who he really said he was, you see.
In the 50s, there was quite a change in civil rights attitudes, 50s and 60s. I'm just wondering, what was the atmosphere among the Baha'is concerning the races back in the 40s?
Well, it was very interesting to me. I thought at that particular time, and I think this is true in general society, that the desire for racial equality was very, very vivid and very true and very pronounced. And I felt at that particular time that the Baha'is shone like stars in their acceptance and love of Baha'is, of black people. I mean, it showed because then there wasn't this so-called equality that you see today, which I think is often covered up with a slick cover, and it's really underneath there's still a lot of prejudice.
Sure. I know one of the Baha'i teachings is that you extend yourself a little bit extra to someone of a different race. And that's very important. I've seen some wonderful things with the races among the Baha'is, and there is, I wouldn't say it's really not, there's no distinction between the races, but the Baha'is really enjoy the diversity between the races, and that's what's so great to see a Baha'i group.
Well, what is so wonderful is the acceptance. You know, I went to a community and we were...
So freeing. It frees you of this energy to channel it towards positive things.
Positive things. As people say, I feel free to go up and hug someone because they're a Baha'i, and there's this love, and it doesn't matter what color the skin is.
Right.
And once in a while you make a mistake and you do that outside. People who are not Baha'is, and you find yourself saying, oh, I'm terribly sorry. You find out usually they don't mind, but nevertheless it's interesting. One thing about the racial issue for Baha'is that I find to be so exciting is that in our teachings, Abdu'l-Baha, who was the son of Baha'u'llah, stated very clearly that both sides, black and white, and any other group that is distinctive, have to accept each other, and they have to accept each other, and they have to get rid of their differences. It isn't just a one-way street. And I think that's very important today. You know, there's no group that can blame.
I would say it's probably true that that people of the white race have prejudices, and people of the black race have prejudices, and people of whatever race you are a member of have prejudices. And you have to sincerely work to get over these preconceived ideas.
You mean we have to work together. We have to help each other over them. We have to have genuine love and caring for one another and not make judgments nor desire each person to fit into our mold. We want them to be themselves. We want to share the beauty of their particular robes, their particular attitudes. When I lived in Israel and worked for the Baha'i faith in Haifa, I worked for the administrative body there and the gentlemen who are the governing body for the Baha'i world, the Universal House of Justice. And I worked for them, and one of the great times when they were elected, people from all over the world came to the World Center. And it was so exciting to see them in their beautiful costumes from all over the world. And when they were being elected, one man from Africa was there, and I had seen him come in his business suit off the plane, and then he changed into his outfit, and he's standing on stage with this British accent. He's a lawyer, standing on stage in his African garment, and would call each one of the men's names. And I thought to myself as I sat there, tearful really, how beautiful this is to see the acceptance of humanity from all over the world the way they are. This is what the Baha'i faith is all about, is the acceptance.
Right. It's one of my major goals to someday go to Israel. That's something that you just briefly mentioned in passing here, that there was a time several years back, 8 or 9 years ago, where you were asked to go to Haifa, Israel, to the Baha'i World Center in Israel, and to work on the staff there. That must have been an incredible feeling to be asked to go to Israel.
Well, I went there with trepidation because I didn't know what I was getting into. I had lived in America, and I left Utah and gone to California and then to Chicago, to Wilmette, where one of our wonderful temples is. And I thought to myself, now I'm going way across the water, across the world. I don't know what I'm going to do. You know, we all have these fears. And when I got over there and experienced the love and saw the magnificent shrines that are part of the Baha'i world there, I should say, and are so beautiful that they are revered by the Israelis themselves.
Right.
That when I got there and I had this marvelous opportunity to meet all these beautiful people that come on pilgrimage all over the world, come there, and had the opportunity to work on the staff, and I happened to be in personnel. So I had the great bounty of calling Fiji and calling Africa and calling Japan and South America and talking to Baha'is
Such an
all
incredible
over the
perspective
world.
you had. You had literally had a world perspective over the entire world.
All over the entire world.
There are Baha'is in every country of the world, even it's kind of low-key in the communist countries.
Right.
But, what is it like to work at the World Center?
Well, it's one of the most exciting positions you could possibly have. First of all, as Baha'is, you see, we believe that Baha'u'llah is the one who is to guide mankind during this day. And to think that he walked those shores, and to have the excitement of walking the shores where Jesus walked, and to have this period, to live through this period of time that in a country where all the holy figures have placed their mark is so exciting. Really is an exciting time. So not only to have the history of mankind sort of on Mount Carmel, so to speak, but to deal with and work with the Baha'is that come through, to talk to people who are not Baha'is, who come to our beautiful shrines, and they are exquisite, and see them appreciate and worship, actually worship in our shrines is tremendous. For me, one of the great and wonderful bounties was to be in the pilgrim house and meet Baha'is from all over the world who come on a pilgrimage. They spend 9 days and they go to our shrines and they meet with the Universal House of Justice members, 9 men, 9 elected men, And they meet with them, and they have the privilege of seeing these men and having the bounty of meeting them. You know, there is nothing more wonderful as a Baha'i to recognize that we have no clergy, and that these elected men are the men who are guiding us, you know.
Right.
And it's so exciting because to have 9 men and to have different administrative bodies, local spiritual assemblies throughout the world, to have these people as our governing body and know that we elected them, that they are using their knowledge and spirit to guide us, millions of Baha'is throughout the world, is an exciting thing. And to know that you're part of it and that you're helping to bring this about is really exciting.
One of the really unique things about the Baha'i administration is the way that the people are elected, and that is there is no candidates, there are no nominations. That the way the members of the Universal House of Justice are elected is there are delegates selected from each country in the world, each country where there is a national spiritual assembly. And these 9 men are elected by secret ballot with no candidates, no nominations. So essentially what you are getting, I think, is probably the 9 most spiritual qualified men in the entire world. These are people that did not even seek the position, and yet they are elected from the entire world. This is how they're elected. And we have people from all backgrounds. We have a teacher, there's doctors,
lawyers,
Persians, Orientals, black, white. The Baha'i Universal House of Justice is truly representative of the entire spectrum of the world.
Right.
What was it like to work with these people? Could you tell us some of the things about the members of the House of Justice?
To me, it was so exciting because I went there. I knew some of them, of course, but I still went there with this feeling that perhaps they were going to be so spiritual that I might not be able to approach them, you know. And of course, that's not true, because the first thing they did when I came there was take me into their chambers and shower such love and laughter and fun with me that I knew that this was going to be a marvelous thing.
Yeah.
And to be there with them, to be with people that have been in a place for many years, and to deal with them every single day, and to be able to say, after 8.5 years, that you have never seen any of them out of the way do anything that was ugly or thoughtless or unkind, to feel their continuing love and encouragement is to me alone a miracle, you see. And then to be with staff members, people who were giving voluntary service. This doesn't mean that we're not cared for, but we are not a paid, a salaried, I should say, a group of people who volunteer to serve there. And to see the kind of sacrifice and service and joyous living, because we played cards and we danced and we played golf and we went swimming and we had wonderful talks and we met people from all over the world. You can imagine what kind of service that is. You know.
It would be so special to live in the exact place where Baha'u'llah lived, and where Abdu'l-Baha lived, and where the guardian Shoghi Effendi lived. And actually to be living right with the people who knew them intimately.
Yeah.
Shoghi Effendi's wife is still living there. And it was...
Yes, Madame.
I couldn't imagine.
Madame Rabbani, as we call her, Abdu'l-Baha, I mean Amatul-Baha, Ruhiya Khanum, is truly, what word do I want to say, is truly a magnificent woman, a woman who has traveled all over the world, gone into jungles and things like this, who has written books and who is a reservoir of knowledge and history, you know. Right. And then to be there with all these people who, as you say, knew these holy figures, and to be able to kneel at the threshold of the shrine of these holy figures. We have the most beautiful shrine, I do believe, in the world, right there on Mount Carmel. Beautifully kept up, beautiful rose gardens, beautiful trees, and truly, if anyone should ever go to the Holy Land to see anything there, to see Jesus, where Jesus walked, they really should go and see the Baha'i shrines. They are absolutely magnificent.
Right.
And the beautiful part about them is that they're open to the public.
We did a series of interviews recently with the rabbi in Carbondale, and he was so anxious to show us some of his books and photographs of the Baha'i World Center. He's been there 2 or 3 times. And he pulled out these huge posters. These are travel publicity posters for Israel. And on these publicity posters for Israel is the Baha'i World Center and the gardens and the shrines. And the Baha'i properties in Haifa and Mount Carmel dominate the entire vista, especially at night when the Shrine of the Bab is lit up and you have this beautiful golden dome.
Well, it's so magnificent. And it was such a thrill to be able to drive down there. I would have my car and I would drive past and hear all the lights are on. And it was so exciting to guide and meet all the people who are coming through and hear them say this, how magnificent these buildings are. It's more than just the beauty of the outside in this particular shrine with the golden dome that is right in Haifa. The interior is so filled with spirit and so filled with the beauty of the roses that are always there. They are constant roses, so to speak. You know, you've heard the burning flame? Well, there's the constant roses there. And to smell those roses, and often at night when you go to pray, you hear the birds, the nightingales, and all of them singing outside, and it's just almost like being as close to heaven as you could ever be. You know?
What is fascinating is that all this beauty and all this glory and this unity really came out of the most base degradation I think that you could imagine, where Baha'u'llah began his mission in a prison in the most unsanitary conditions, where the prisoners were chained together and there were no sanitary provisions, and each day one or more of the prisoners would be taken out and executed. And it is still something that the Baha'is of the East still have to deal with, where their lives are in danger every day. To see how such beauty has grown out of such nothing. It's one of the greatest proofs, I think, of Baha'u'llah, is that he raised his standard from prison, from a place where he was shut out. This is a place where it was intended that he would die. And it was from this prison that the Baha'i teachings have gone out to the entire world. They're transforming literally millions of people today.
Well, don't you think that you and I are a wonderful example of that?
I know that I am.
My view is that here I am from Utah, and how would I have ever met you or met any of these wonderful people from all over the world if I hadn't been a Baha'i? And believe me, when I joined the Baha'i faith, I didn't have any idea that my life would take me to these glorious areas and to have the opportunity to meet and see these beloved people.
This question has nothing to do with anything. Did you know Steve Lieberman when you lived there?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I brought Steve Lieberman there.
Really?
Yes, I'm the one that suggested that he come here.
Steve Lieberman was one of our best friends when he lived in Carbondale. Steve Lieberman went to school at Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, and Steve went to Israel.
Yes, we brought him to Israel. And he worked in Israeli affairs because he also knew he's from Hebrew, you see.
Yes, he was from a Jewish background.
That's right. And while he was there, he met a beautiful young woman and got married. And
they live in England.
And they live in England, and they run the George Ronald book sale store.
They also have a new daughter.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, he's one of those examples of a boy who lived around the temple in Wilmette, and whose parents wondered what he was getting into. And of course now they have this beautiful granddaughter, a grandchild, and a daughter-in-law are grateful that whatever he gotten into was right.
Yeah, it's such a small world. That here's a friend of ours from Carbondale, came all the way to Israel with Betsy. And Steve was a great guy. He had such a great sense of humor.
And always said he just didn't know whether he would ever find anyone to marry.
That was one of his. That's Steve. Yeah, that was one of his.
Yeah, that was one of his things. I don't know if I'll ever have this opportunity, and here he is.
He had the same worry when he lived at Carbondale.
Oh, it really is wonderful. It's wonderful to think that we know all these people. And recently, I was in, as a matter of fact, last week, I was in San Francisco at a great world.
Oh, you went to the Peace Conference. Oh, tell us about that.
And it was exciting. There were over 7,800 people around that. I think they lost count, to tell you the truth. It felt more like 10,000. And then this wonderful speaker, Mr. Laszlo, who wrote a magnificent book. And we had so many opportunities from the press, particularly with people of foreign languages. Many of the newspapers, the Chinese, the Vietnamese, printed full pages in their own language. And we had people who were not Baha'is. There were over 800 people who were not Baha'is, and some who declared their belief in Baha'u'llah. There was great music. There was beautiful dancing. I wanted to make it very clear that Baha'is are not always praying. Because, you know, Baha'is do believe in prayer, and we do believe in one God, and we do believe that mankind must be unified. And this particular conference really played that up. To see the many people, and to see the beautiful smiles, and to see the people in San Francisco just sort of line up to look at us.
I can understand that.
San Francisco's used to a group of many groups and many types, but this was wonderful.
I'm sorry to say that we are just about out of time. Our guest today has been Betsy Haynes, and it's been delightful.
No, I've enjoyed it.
Someday I will go to Israel, and I envy you so much for being able to live there. But is there any closing remarks you have? We have about 30 seconds.
Nothing except that I think that this is a wonderful medium for everyone to be able to learn about many things. And I know that that the Baha'i faith is becoming known to people because of the Iranian crisis and because of the death, martyrdom of Baha'is in Iran. I want to say that we as Baha'is thank all of you that have known about this and that have given your support and your love. And that certainly includes the President of the United States.
Right.
And the many people in the world who have now received our World Peace Program that was given to us by the Universal House of Justice and that we have given throughout the world.
Thank you. For Baha'i Focus this week, that's about all the time we have. We'd like to thank you for watching. Our guest today was Betsy Haynes. And if you'd like to know more about the Baha'i faith, there's several ways you can do it. There are Baha'i books in the libraries, in the city library, and in the library at SIU. You can call the phone number in the white pages of the phone book. We'd be happy to provide you with literature or any information or try to answer any questions you have for this week.